yes, this is a pulverized build, but not your normal Earth or Bear pulverize. This is the Poison Edition. So yeah, this is not your usual pulverized build, but it is still a mix of Earth and Werebear, and we just add poison to it. I know, why even bother mixing poison in, just use Earth, cause it's fun coming up with creative builds, and this build might even be more satisfying than Earth pulverized in my opinion. And Blizzard recently showed briefly the new Druid aspect in the new developer update, Poison Creeper being able to summon landslides, and Earth does increase damage to poison targets. So more synergies will come for the Earth Poison combos. And again, like my previous build, I'm not using any uniques. Wanted to challenge myself since it just seems most Druid builds are so unique dependent. And I have made a graphic again for this build. You guys can check it out as a quick guide on how the build works. I'll have it linked in the description and comments below. Anyway, let's get into how the build actually works. So the star of the show here is Poison Creeper, and we are going to be using Changeling's Depth to activate its poison for immediate damage. But the poison damage doesn't end there. We will also be using Constricted Tendrils legendary node on the Paragon Boards to do additional poison damage every time we pulverize. And then activate that poison again immediately with another pulverize. But Constricted Tendrils can only be activated by nature magic skills. That's why we will be using Aspect of the Earth Sign Horror to turn Pulverize into an Earth skill. And this build doesn't need the Earthern Might key passive in order to sustain Spirit. We will be free to take something like Earth Sign Strength for key passive to do more damage. Because we are also getting a lot of crowd control off from Constricting Tendrils whenever it is activated. And then with the use of Aspect of Quicksand to make Pulverize CC every time we hit due to it being an Earth skill as well, we generate plenty of Spirit through Aspect of the Umbral. Enough Spirit that we don't need Earthern Might anymore. And that's basically how the build works. We use Poison Creeper active, we pulverize next, activating and consuming the poison immediately, and we generate a lot of Spirit through our CC that we can just spam pulverize even without Earthern Might key passive. So for the basic attack, we're going with Storm Strike. And sorry, in my footage you might see me using Claw. I was just testing it, mostly for its poison damage with Fierce Claw. But in the end, I still went back to Storm Strike, just for the damage reduction. It's just too good not to take. And we're gonna pick up all the 3 points of Wild Impulses. We're gonna max out Pulverize, and we're gonna take Raging Pulverize for even more Spirit generation when we overpower it with an attack through Aspect of the Umbral. And then we're maxing out Predatory Instinct, taking all the critical strike chance that we can get. For defenses, we're picking up Eldritch Bulwark, and we're grabbing 3 points of Vigilance for more defenses. And then we're maxing out Poison Creeper and taking Ferocious Poison Creeper to extend the duration of the poison by 3 seconds. Basically, the longer the duration of the active, the more damage it does, so we will do more damage activating with Changeling's Depth. And then we're going to be picking up Hurricane. This synergizes well with Call of the Storm Boon. And then we have another source of Vulnerable. That's what we'll pick up Natural Hurricane. And then we're maxing up all the Earth passives, Crushing Earth, Safeguard, and Stone Guard. Crushing Earth since we have so many ways to immobilize and stun, and we also slow as well with every time we pulverize. And then we're picking up all points in Envenom, since we also have many sources of poison damage as well. And then for this build, we're picking up an ultimate skill, Petrify. Petrify can also help restore Spirit whenever you run low, because it's a area-wide CC. And we pick up both passes for it. And then we're gonna max out Defiance. Nature magic skills deal increased damage to elites. Then we're maxing out Natural Disaster. Earth skills does increase damage to Vulnerable, and we have many sources of Vulnerable as well. And with the point left, I picked up Circle of Life, just for a bit of healing. And then for the key passive, I picked up Earth Sign Strength. We don't need Earthen Might, so we're gonna pick up Earth Sign Strength for more damage. And the 20% maximum life is a big bonus as well. So for the aspects, as I mentioned before, the most important aspects you need are Aspect of Changing Depth to activate the poison, Aspect of the Umbral, whenever we CC we get a lot of Spirit, and then we'll be needing Aspect of the Earth Sign Horror to turn Pulverize into an Earth skill, so that it can activate Constricting Tendrils whenever we get a lucky hit, or with the use of Aspect of Quicksand to make Pulverize CC every time since it's an Earth skill. So those 4 are the main things you want. And all those 4 aspects are pretty easy to get. They're not random drops, you can get them from each of these dungeons that are already listed here. So this build is pretty easy to put together. And then another really good aspect you want to pick up is Shockwave aspect, which will basically make Pulverize like a range attack. This one's not a must, but it's really good for the build, so you should probably pick that up too if you have it. It is a random drop though. And then for the rest of the aspects, you can check it out in my max roll build, which will be in the description. For the helmet, the first thing you want to look for is cooldown reduction. That affects a lot of our skills, aside from maybe basic and core. The next thing you want is primary stat. It can be dex, it can be willpower, and then you're looking for max life, total armor, and as usual for the chest, you want all damage reduction affixes. And if you can find those, you can find something like max life, damage reduction, total armor. And then for the gloves, the first thing you look for is ranks to pulverize. That's probably the most important thing you look for first. And then the next thing you want a critical strike chance, then critical strike damage with earth skills. You want lucky hit, since we have a lot of lucky hit conditions like pack leader, constricted tendrils, and then there's also calm before the storm boon. And then sorry, I listed lucky hit here, that's not supposed to be there, I'll delete that. And for substitutes you can get willpower, dex, or if you can't find it then you can go for overpower damage, since we do overpower damage with pulverize. And then of course pants, again damage reduction from everything. And the boots, the main thing is the movement speed. And for the weapon, I went with vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, willpower, and core skill damage. And then the amulet, again, just like the helm, you want cooldown reduction first. And then if you can find it, you can try to get ranks in crushing earth or natural disaster. If you have both, that's great, put them both in. And then for the rings, you want critical strike chance, critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and max life for some extra life. Or if you feel like you're tanking enough, you can go for the lucky hit instead. So for the boons, we're gonna pick up wariness, and then of course sight talents. Then a very important boon to pick up for this build is pack leader. Every time with critical strike, we have a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of companion skill, which is poison creeper. And if you're lucky, you get like 2-3 resets of poison creeper in just in one fight. And then you want to pick up masochistic. This is probably really important too. With every critical strike, we will heal 3% of our maximum life. And then finally, we're picking up calm before the storm, so that we can reduce the cooldown of petrify. So for the Paragon board, I first went into Earthern Devastation, picked up most of the critical strike damage with earth skill nodes. And then the next board I went into is Constricting Tendrils. That's what you want to get next, since Tendrils is also very important to generate spirit through the aspect of the Umbro. And after that board, I went into the Hidden Malice board, picked up some of the damage to poison enemy nodes, as well as the glyph on here. And then the final board I went into is the Survival Insects legendary node. For that board, I just picked up the legendary node. For the glyphs, of course, you want exploit. That's basically in most builds. Yes, we do have several skills to cause vulnerable, but we also want the vulnerable damage from it. And then the next glyph I picked up was the Werebear glyph. It was just a good fit on the Earthern Devastation board since there was a lot of willpower surrounding it. And then for the next glyph, I went with Spirit glyph for more critical strike damage with core skills. And then I finally went with the Tracker glyph to make all poisoning damage effects last 33% longer, which means more damage. For changeling, step to proc. Single target is pretty meh on this build. Something like Shred and Tornado are leaps ahead. AoE damage on the other hand is right up there with any build. The use of Creeper plus Pulverize just melts all the mobs. And on top of that, if you're lucky, you get a bunch of Poison Creeper resets. Survivability I would say is very good. 42 is up almost every time, and you also have a bunch of healing from Masochistic and Circle of Life passive. And then we have clear speed, which is only this low because we move slower movement speed wise than like Shred builds, and we take a bit more longer at boss fights. But aside from speed and single target, the build is hella fun to play. Just using Poison Creeper and popping that with Poison and Pulverize just feels really fun to play. I will have the complete build and graphic in the description and comment below. And if you guys do enjoy the builds, please consider giving a thumbs up and subscribe if you want more of this content. And again, thank you guys for watching.